I've learned that the best founders are always selling.
Welcome to the GTM Vault podcast, hosted by Rick Koleta. We uncover the strategies, the pivots, and the breakthroughs, turning startups into giants. Let's crack, open the vault, and find out how.
Welcome to the GTM Vault podcast. I'm Rick Koleta, and today we're talking to Jan Heimes and Onur Eken, the co-founders of Needle-AI.com, a startup that just raised $2.2 million to transform how companies leverage AI for productivity. Jan, ex-Climeworks data engineer turned CEO, and Onur, ex-Celonis delivery hero, CTO, are on a mission to make organizations AI-enabled in one day. Let's dive into their vision, technical edge, and how they're redefining the future of work. You both left stable jobs to build Needle. What was the aha moment where you realized this has to exist?
So before I lived in Switzerland, Zurich, as you know, many people actually try to move there. It's like a classic place. I even was also back then kind of a bit of a podcaster. I had a YouTube channel and was doing street interviews. So I know that there was a huge demand of people moving to Switzerland, Zurich. And that's why I tried to go into that niche. And indeed, I had a very stable job. I had also 6-figure salary and good life. But maybe it's not just that there is one single aha moment itself. There are many smaller aha moments which make this kind of moment happen. For example, I went to Berlin and I met Onur. And in the beginning, we were working on a RAG API. And nowadays, Needle is still we serve a RAG API and you can use Needle as a RAG API, but it's not the solely use case. Most of the users are actually the AI platform customers. And that's also where we are evolving Needle into, in a kind of a cursor for your knowledge and tools. And so it is not necessarily that there is one single aha moment. It's more like Onur and I realized that we can work very well together, and we realized that in this RAG API market, there is a huge need because we have many friends who are consultants, had this problem. We saw ourselves building many companies building RAG infrastructure in-house. So we were like, why is there not such a managed solution for that, like in API? And there were some like SageMaker and so on, but it was still kind of complicated. So we were working together on the RAG API, but we pivoted from that also a little bit into an end-to-end AI platform. I wouldn't therefore not say there's necessarily this aha moment like crazy, but it's more like, I guess Onur and I really realized that we can work very well together and we enjoy very much working together. And it's not like the first product or the first vision of your product you have is going to be how the product will look forever, right? You will probably pivot 1, 2, 3 times until you have it, based on your customer feedback. But if you have the right person you do this with, then you can do that. And that's kind of maybe the aha moment, I would say.
Yeah, and I would also like to add on top of that, I feel like there's actually two kind of aha moments, as Jan mentioned, that we thought this, it has to be easier to do RAG. And then this is our first aha moment. And then second was okay, it's cool, but it's kind of not enough for a lot of real world problems. It was our second aha moment, we have to do more than that. We have to provide a more holistic platform. And on a personal side, I think Jan made a big sort of moved from another city into Berlin. So in my case, I was still here. But previously, I was also working here in Berlin. And I just realized that after working in sort of bigger companies, I realized I just like to work in a small startup, a small fast-paced environment. It makes much more fun and feels much more fulfilling. So, I also worked at startups recently, and I decided to, start a show sort of myself as well. And yeah, so far, I can say that I'm really enjoying it. With hundreds of AI tools out there, what's Needle's secret sauce that convinced investors to back you?
I think in the end, it's about execution. There's a philosophy we believe here at Needle, which is consistency. And if you integrate consistency, you can see it kind of as a graph, if you keep consistently pushing and consistently delivering high quality output, this resolves you to actually increase the success or lead to success of your business. And so I would say success is consistency over time, pushing high quality output and listening to what people really want. And in the end, it's also, we are in a way humans, right? So you have to convince the other person to believe in you, right? You have to convince the other person because sure, there's a VC funds, but in the end, it's human beings in the end who make decisions. That's why stock markets go up and down, and they are somewhat emotional. They're not just purely logical, right? And so I think one of the key factors here is that we need to show that we are a strong team. Onur and I are a strong team together. We like kind of complete each other, I would say, and that we have like a very, very fast-paced ability to push things forward and a very strong conviction and diligence and commitment to make this big and make this work. And I think this is maybe the key factors that made people convinced that Onur and Jan can start a startup and they can make it.
Yeah, it's a bit like, in my opinion, it's a bit, let's say you want to go to gym and you want to build muscles, and maybe one day you go, you push really hard, you work very hard, but then next 2 months, kind of slack around and you don't have the discipline. It's a little bit similar, in my opinion. When you're building a company, you also need to consistently deliver more or less every day, because then you can feel actually you are making a progress. And I mean, it sounds pretty difficult, and it is, but if you sort of look at the future, like what is there to be done, you may kind of get discouraged. And because of that, like we always kind of look back and we just, realize how much we've accomplished, how much we've done so far. And that helps quite a lot with the motivation, for example. It helps quite a lot with the drive. And then I think having this kind of, willingness, this kind of desire to take the pain and go the extra mile, I think is something, fundamental ingredient for starting a company.
I just want to add here one thing. I think very nicely said. I think what Onur said also, like that you consistently push. It's a bit like if you bring energy to the room. Let's say I bring energy. Let's say we are 2 people, or like say 5 people in the room, and I bring the energy and I energize everybody else. Everybody else might feel like, oh, here's some energy, here's something going on. You energize the other person, the energy swaps over, and hence the whole room maybe might be energized, and it's like, oh wow, let's do this. Let's get this going. I can feel that there is something on it. I know that it's a difficult thing to do, to start a startup. Everybody knows, but it requires a lot of consistency. I think that's kind of the thing, because there are hard days, there are fun days, there are sad days, there are exciting days. It's like a bit of a roller coaster, and keeping in this roller coaster consistent is the key to success. One more point I would like to say. I think it's also a bit about FOMO. It's like when Onur and I were racing around, I think Onur has shared back then the very great article, which was like, you're either hot or you're cold. It's a bit like, once you're maybe more hot, let's say you're on a party and there's maybe a person you find interesting, and other person finds also then interesting this person, because you think, oh, this person might be interesting. So it creates a bit like of a drive of people like thinking, oh, this might be interesting, because if other person thinks it's interesting, there must be something to it.
Yeah, and also want to add, like on top, like from a investor perspective, there are potential, startups that are moving forward, and investors kind of want to identify these opportunities and don't want to sort of miss on this opportunity. That's a bit like a, common belief. So if more than one party believes, becomes easier for the rest of the investors to justify and, justify this kind of investment decision, basically.
Well, let me ask you this. At the time that you raised your round of funding, was the category that you compete in the process of being built? Do you consider yourselves a category creator? Where do you fall within Gartner's Magic Quadrant? Or is it even out yet for your category?
Yeah, I would say like this kind of market we entered. So initially it was, retrieval augmented generation as a service kind of market. So it's an unproven market, right? So it's somewhat new. So you can call it a kind of a new category, but I wouldn't say that, we completely brought this to the life. So there were some attempts like we've seen, we just didn't think that they were done in the right way. So what I mean by that, like for instance, we've seen some other solutions which are like, you can still have like this fully managed React pipeline. It is possible, like there were some offerings, but it still had like a lot of configuration details. And, personally, we believe that shouldn't be the way to go, because more things you can offer to configure, more things can go wrong, more time user has to spend to figure it out, right? So which is not a great user experience. In that sense, like we kind of came in to a new emerging market. It's still in the same phase, I would argue. It's been about like a bit more than a year. React is more and more getting adoption. It works good in practice, so that's why it's getting adoption. So there's a good chance like this market is gonna be good on long term. So in that sense, I'd say we are like one of the early joiners to this new market.
Got it. And imagine I'm a sales manager at a mid-sized company. How would Needle change my team's day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's actually one of the key points we try to address. And we do work with many profiles like that. So in this case, as I said before, there's many tools which are like probably you've heard of Windsurf, and right now this kind of OpenAI wanting to acquire Windsurf for 3 billion, and Cursor, which is also like similar to Windsurf, or maybe Microsoft Copilot, which was maybe one of the earliest players, but right now it's like a bit of behind of these two, three kind of players. And the thing is that there's kind of these cursor tools for code developers, but we thought, why is there not like a cursor kind of for non-devs or like for your knowledge and tools? And that's where we bring in Needle. And how a salesperson would then use it is like that it is connected to HubSpot, to Notion, to your Google Mail account, and so on. And if you have like a specific detail, like let's say you have a call, we have a call together, then I could ask before the call, okay, I talked with Rick Koleta. What is again the last 5 emails we have talked? To give me a quick summary. And what did he mention in this last email of maybe what this kind of talk is about? And maybe there's an attachment also to your email, like a PDF or Word document. In our case, it's also the case. And then I could say, for example, it would also query this document and would be able to kind of read it and give me some update on that. Hence, you could also ask questions such as, okay, what is again the deal we have signed with customer X? What is my tax ID number? So like basically many small questions which come up in your day-to-day life when you do sales, when you do need to find information and make decisions based on that, or like talk with people to find this information very fast, easily across all your different knowledge tools.
So I would say like Needle helps mostly not in the strategical sense because I mean I know it from myself. Like I'm actively using AI to help me with the coding. And so if I ask AI to make high level or let's say complex architectural decisions, it won't do very well actually because it needs more context that kind of exists in my brain. In that sense, like using AI for let's say dirty work or let's say things that are repeating that are way more useful, and that's how we intend to use Needle as well. So, like Jan mentioned, so we also like to call it as your dedicated AI intern. So imagine imagine you are having like back in the day having a dedicated human intern. You say, can you go copy me this kind of? Can you go create a blog post about this topic? Use this stuff. So imagine like we intend people that people use Needle in such a way. The difference is from a regular AI agent or from a regular agentic chat is that it has access to more or less all of the tools you use day-to-day work. So it can be way more useful. So instead of like this intern clicking on buttons, it will be just sending, let's say, instructions in the computer language, and things happen on the background. That's kind of like the primary use of Needle, and that can help a lot of like, let's say, operational overhead to be handed over to AI. I mean, operational in the sense that, you need to open up some website, you need to click on buttons, like all of these things kind of go away. You just like give a bit, let's say, somewhat high level, but also a bit specific instructions to Needle, and it's executing for you.
Give us a concrete example. Let's dive right in. How does Needle make a marketing team more effective without replacing humans?
Yeah, a concrete example is just, for example, we have a lot of blog posts on Substack, and we have also our own blog posts on the Needle domain, needle-ai.com/blog. And from that, we also want to publish this on, for example, Twitter as a small tweet, but Twitter accounts only have 250 words limit. And so what we can do with Needle is we can say, okay, go through all my blog posts, and for each of this blog post, generate me a Twitter post, which kind of abstracts this blog post, and schedule this in a 4-day basis. So, for example, I could say every 4 days, I want that there's a Twitter post based on the Substack post that I've already published. So I can basically reuse this content and push it to Twitter, which I already have in my own blog. I would like to have to read through the blog post, write something for just like 5 blog posts per maybe take me 1 hour, but with like this feature or this Needle tool here, where you read through the paginated blog posts, it's taking you 10 minutes.
Most AI tools fail because people don't use them. How do you design Needle to avoid becoming shelfware?
I think like here, when you say AI tools, you mean a lot of application that's which we call as ChatGPT wrapper kind of things, which is like basically picking a specific use case, maybe a smaller task, and executing this action, specifically this action behind the scenes using LLMs like ChatGPT. And I mean, we are not doing that. So we are kind of offering a platform which is general enough, so these kind of small tools, they are not that useful to the users because they are solving a specific problem. But if you have a one-fits-all kind of platform like Needle, because it has connection to all of the different kind of data sources, then you don't have to switch from different tool to different tool. So you can just go Needle and then write your instructions in English, and that will be helping you already. So it's, in that sense, it's a generic tool, but also useful because it can interrogate with data sources and intended for the companies.
I would add one thing here. Just I think what is one important here, and is maybe what you also realize yourself when you try these tools, is actually user experience. So it's about making the user like your product. It's about making, sometimes you don't even realize it, and maybe it's similar to the podcast. Let's say you do this podcast and that you have a good microphone is actually, nobody thinks about that. You don't say upfront, I have a good microphone, and you listen right now to microphone good quality, but people subconsciously recognize this effect, even though it's never publicly or directly stated somewhere. And this indirectness is making people like maybe skipping the podcast or staying within the podcast for some time. I realized, for example, this small factor myself when I had the YouTube channel. And the thing is, like with this AI tools, is similar. When you have to understand how the user is like feeling, kind of also a bit like user experience is very, very important to make the user be good and enjoy the application, get fast to this aha moment. Like, oh, wow, this is really exciting, this dopamine kick a bit, and I think this is like one of the most important things. And we try to design Needle in a way that with the most little clicks, you reach the fastest to the aha moment also. And then that if you really reach that and people enjoy your tool, then this makes them like kind of be connected a bit also with the tool and use it.
What do you say about data privacy? I know that companies fear AI tools stealing their data. How do you build trust while still delivering powerful insights?
I think it's a lot about like sort of credibility, and a lot also about education, because a lot of people, they don't know how exactly LLMs work and how they are trained. So there's a lot of lack of like information. And if you like, we always have to tell to our clients that we are not training machine learning models using your data, and you have to be very explicit about it, and you have to sort of lay out a bit more details about like how the product operates, so that it becomes more clear to them and it builds more trust over time. And also the kind of, let's say, tooling and the providers you use has to be, credible sources as well. So for example, we are using at the moment major cloud providers, which are using the best security practices. And it's important to sort of highlight that. I think it's trust builds over time, and it also, comes when you're present for the customer. Let's say your client is having a kind of a problem, and if you have a good customer support, if you are there like coming back to them fast, solving their problem quickly, then it's also building trust over time. So it's kind of like a combination of lots of different factors, in my opinion.
And what's one technical decision you made, Onur, at Needle that seemed counterintuitive at first, but is now a game changer?
I wouldn't call, so I have some example in my mind, and I wouldn't call it counterintuitive, but it may look something like relatively trivial, but over time it turned out to be very important, in my opinion. It sounds very simple, but it's basically just code structure. So when you're building your application, like how you divide your piece of code into different modules is your code structure. And the more intuitive code structure you have, it becomes easier to work with. So we try to be very careful with it at the very beginning. So we wanted to make it as intuitive as possible. And I think we did a fairly good job there. So right now, let's say we want to build a new integration. Let that be HubSpot, let that be Zendesk, whatsoever. It's actually pretty straightforward for our engineering team to build this feature. It takes maybe just a couple of days. And it has a simple reason, but it's returning very well, in my opinion.
And you promised to be ready in one day. How do you make AI adoption that fast for legacy companies?
Yeah, so this is a good question also. The thing is, we tried, as maybe it goes a bit again to this UX and how do you make your user stay. So we try to make this connection to all this kind of different data sources as easy as possible, because we go through an OAuth, which means that you just like click, and you're basically saying which data you want to connect to Needle, and then you directly have the chat and can ask questions. So it's actually like very, very fast to set this up. So that means the user experience is good, reaching fast to the aha moment. Hence, like you see probably, I mean, you're also on Twitter and on LinkedIn and stuff. Probably you see sometimes some posts out there, which is like, oh, look, I tried this new AI tool to automate my stuff. In the end, I didn't automate anything. I still do it manually, like how I did it before. And I think this is because setting up maybe some like a tool takes you more time than actually doing it like just manually. And we try to reduce this time from like first touch to actually get use out of it as minimal as possible.
Are you betting on open source models, proprietary tech, or a hybrid? How do you future proof against OpenAI's next release?
So we try to follow like a flexible approach here. So sometimes we do use open source models, sometimes we do use proprietary. I mean, proprietary has to be like somebody who also, cares also about data security, as mentioned earlier. But like, for instance, we are not neglecting open source models because some of them are really promising and the community is growing very big. So we can actually get a lot of, let's say, performance and benefits from using open source models. And there are also some kind of categories where proprietary models are doing better. So in that sense, we kind of want the best of both worlds. So sometimes we deploy for some part of our application is built with open source models and some others not. So we think it's like the way to go. It's a bit, obviously, from a technical perspective, more overhead to sort of deploy your own models and maintain them. But we think that this helps with the quality of the product.
What's your must-have signal that a customer truly needs Needle, not just like the idea?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that's actually one of the most biggest questions I guess every company is also having. And we just talked, for example, last Friday with a bigger consultancy from New York as a potential partnership. And the thing is that what this person said, and something which keeps in our head also today, is many people are very excited about these new AI tools, but actually not so many people are then actually committing. I feel it's a bit like everybody is dating a bit around, checking out what is out there, but nobody is going really into a relationship. I feel sometimes it's kind of staying open. The commitment is not crazy strong because this market is also crazy fast. So I can also understand people try to see what is actually happening in the future. It's like a bit uncertain. Many things are changing. OpenAI is releasing a new model, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, what we see truly as a signal from the user is that it is saying, okay, I'm actually willing to pay for, let's say, proof of concept, a specific amount, and I bring in 5 sample users. And if that's the case, like even if it's just like, let's say $100 or $500, it already is kind of validated that this person actively is willing to pay for such a solution. And in this case, if the person is actively paying for you, whatever big amount or smaller amount it is kind of validating in the head. It's kind of like a click, like it's like a big enough pain point for me to pay for this. And the signal is, I would say, that they're willing to do like a POC together with us and not just like the idea, because some users or some customers, especially very much in the beginning, they were maybe coming, oh, I like it, maybe I can use it for 2 months for free. But sure, man, we can win many people like this and make it nice tool for free and like kind of burn a bit of money on each of this customer. But then it's not really like a signal that this person really has this pain point so much to really pay for it. So this is, I think, a signal. And another signal I want to say is that they actually, for example, for us, a bit of a difficult customer is that they are only in the Microsoft environment, solely alone. Because these customers often then also don't like to use any other tools except only Microsoft tools. So if that is the signal that I am in the first discovery call with the customer and says, oh, we only work with Microsoft tools solely, and it's a bit of a negative signal for me. It's much better when the customer says, we tried here and there already some. Like I hear a bit of openness towards like also newer tools, because this is a newer tool. We are not like a legacy ERP system. It's somewhat of a new productivity AI tool. So that's also a signal which I think it's quite interesting and important.
I want to now segue over to your GTM playbook. Are you targeting grassroots users or top-down CIOs? What's working better so far?
So here, actually, we made an active decision, like some time ago when we started the company, that we wanted to go both ways. So our GTM strategy is double-sided, both decision-making people and also, let's say, the people in the trenches who are using the tool. And because of that, like, for instance, Needle has a completely free tier. You can sign in and anybody can use without any time limitation, without kind of any problems. There's always a free tier. That is meant for like, the grassroots users. And then, but we also do a lot of like sales outreach to decision-making people and, we educate them. But that's kind of not it, because we do more like marketing stuff as well. And the purpose is like, we think the sales is like being closed, or let's say the credibility is built in multiple touches, in multiple sources. So, think about it that way. If you are a key decision maker, you hear from this kind of tool called Needle from your employees, you saw it in, I don't know, maybe on Instagram, you saw it on Reddit, and you see people are talking about it. That's at this point, like if that happens, like you slowly think that Neil can be a a legitimate good solution because you hear about it from here and there. So in that sense, I would like to say we do more or less everything. So we try to appeal to individual users. We do a lot of marketing, content marketing as well to educate how Neil can be used. And we are also doing sales outreach.
Yeah, I want to add one thing also here. There is like sometimes these grassroots users are also the decision makers in a way. For example, there's maybe like in a company, let's say that I've seen this several times now. It's like they have maybe a trainee or something, and they say to the trainee, the CIO says, "Look around. I know that there's a bunch of new kind of cool tools out there. I just don't have time to look for it. Look around, create me a list of let's say 10 tools, and tell me which one we should use." And in this case, sure, in the end, the CIO is the guy who signs the deal or something. But the person who actively makes the decision theoretically of choosing which tool to use is not the CIO. It's like maybe the trainee in that case. So it's a grassroots user which still has like kind of decision-making power indirectly. It's like something I see these days also with AI tools.
Got it. Yeah, the higher up market you go, it generally means influencing more and more stakeholders. So I get how you guys are nurturing prospects with your marketing engine and trying to influence the decision influencers so that then they go and talk to the decision maker who is then going to more likely use Needle. How do you attract top engineers when competing with AI giants offering $1 million salaries?
So actually, like I can tell that right now the AI sort of wave is growing, and a lot of people who are originally even not in artificial intelligence are shifting towards AI because there is this kind of like it's getting very big. The market is growing very fast, and in that sense, I can say that there's a flood into this kind of market. And it also, works with all kinds of employees and engineers as well. So the thing is, working at a small startup like us is very different than working as, for instance, OpenAI or Anthropic. Because let's say, as from an engineer perspective, you went there, you would have like a very small responsibility in a very small part of the team, which most of the engineers would find not so exciting. I mean, for some time, maybe for getting a higher salary that makes sense to them. But over time, they will realize that, okay, this is actually not the kind of fulfillment I was looking for. And people also want to have like a stake or skin in the game, like when the AI is growing right now, very big. I mean, this is right now the time. If not now, then when. So actually, in that sense, we are getting a lot of applications in terms of engineering people into our company.
Give me your one sentence pitch to a skeptical CEO who says AI is overhyped.
I've heard this phrase sometimes, and actually it makes me a bit annoying, right? I even get a bit angry when I hear that because I think AI is still underhyped these days. Because AI is basically like everybody on the world is kind of using somewhat OpenAI these days. And if you then state AI is overhyped, in my opinion, it's a totally paradox statement to make. And I think AI is crazy underhyped, and you just see it with all these new startups these days, which are like small teams, but huge actually revenue, huge profit because they bring a lot of value with actually a very small dedicated team. And why can they do that? Because they leverage a lot of AI tools. Same we do at Needle. Also, we leverage some other AI tools which help us to be so fast, easygoing, and have a high pace while still providing high quality output. Yeah.
John and Onur, this was fire. For everyone listening, check out needle-ai.com and try it yourself. If you're a builder who wants to shape the future of AI productivity, they're hiring. Mic drop. Until next time, keep breaking out.
Thanks, Patrick.
Tech founders and VCs, careers, lessons, GTM.